All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode 48 of Cage Side Convos. I am Rick Huntsman.
And I'm Quince.
And it's been a little while.
I'm surprised you knew what number we were on.
Yeah, I for sure had to go back. Luckily,
I
would say I keep studious notes, but I don't. I just went back and looked at our podcast page.
Easy enough.
Figured
Easy
it out.
enough. But yeah, it's been forever.
Yeah.
I'd say at least easily a month, but has it been longer than that?
I think it's been a month since we've hung out, chatted a little bit. We got lunch the other day, but I think 2 months ago or so was last time we actually turned on the camera and had a convo, man.
It's long overdue.
Yeah, we're getting some rust off here in the beginning. I think we'll figure out how to get back into it once the wheels get rolling, right?
Sure, I think so.
So, before we get into the meat and potatoes, man, you have been busy community-wise. We were talking a little bit about that before, but I think you guys are doing some really, really cool shit. So a little shameless plug for you, man. Tell us what you've been up to, what Hold Down Upstate's been doing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Stuff. So we've been busy working with a couple different factions around Watertown, Downtown Business Association, North Country Art Council, and working right alongside with the city here in getting artwork up publicly, and specifically on the Riverwalk wall, which is right below the square on Coffeen Street. And it seemed, once we first got together, it seemed like we would never get there as far as understanding what was needed, who to reach out to, as far as regulations, as far as the artwork itself and what we were going to put on the wall. But coming together time and time again and being consistent about the purpose itself. We've got the artists. We locked down the artists. The artists already produced a piece of work. We've been getting recognition in the paper. Shout out Watertown Daily Times. Been showing love, and we're looking to get some artwork up in June. So that is super exciting. We've got a couple cool ways and ideas to get the community involved as well that I'll wait to release that info when we do so as a group. But other than that, working with Tunes, I've got my own little segment on there called Hold Down Upstate's Local Legends, which is just a space for me to spin upstate New York musicians and bands. And we're going on our third episode today. So it's every Thursday at 3:15 right on Tunes, 92.5, 104.5. And it's just by far my favorite part. Yeah. It's something I wanted to integrate since I started, really. So I can continue to be consistent with bringing people together and spotlighting just all the cool shit that Upstate has to offer, whether it's the places or the people and the talent. So, man, it's gonna be a good summer.
That's awesome, man.
It's gonna be a good
summer. That's
summer.
Awesome, dude. And since I've known you, the Hold Down Upstate, the entire idea behind it is community-oriented stuff, right? And you got most of that stuff you're posting on Facebook and everything, right?
Yeah.
A little bit on Instagram. So if people want to kind of get an idea of exactly what's going on, that's where they can go to check out more info.
Right at Hold On Upstate on Facebook. It's all one word. We've got something coming up, and this will be the last, I promise. We've got something coming up, not this Saturday, but Saturday the 24th. We've got a volunteer cleanup crew. We're going to be cleaning up the Riverwalk area in promotion of Earth Day, which is that Thursday, but also in promotion of what is coming to the Riverwalk. So it's all about taking care of the spaces now, the spaces of tomorrow now.
Yeah.
So just because we're excited about what's going on, and we just want to take full advantage of the opportunity. So find out more information about that Riverwalk cleanup on Saturday the 24th. We're going to be meeting at the Factory Park. I think it's just called Factory Park.
Yeah. You're telling the story, man. I'm just listening.
At 9 a.m. So hopefully I see a lot of you guys there. If you have any questions, put it in the link or in the comments. And also I'll link everything that I talked about in the comments as well. So
killer.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So that's Probably more exciting for some of the local people. If we have some out-of-staters listening right now, I'd probably
Fair
a little
enough.
bored with that. But it's still, I mean, it's cool shit, man. And,
It is.
And it's, if nothing else, it's, you know, hopefully would be inspiring to other people seeing it going on, you know, to kind of take the reins and do the same thing, man.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, greater purpose, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just to, from where it started to where it is now to where it's going, man, it's just, it's constant. I'm waking up and excited,
Yeah.
you know, just for whatever is next. You know, it doesn't matter the obstacles really,
Sure,
or anything
sure.
else that comes up. And the coolest part about it is that, you know, you keep, as long as you push forward, you keep meeting other people with the same mindset and mentality that want to give back to the community like it's their purpose, you know, and their passion to assist in the ways that they can. So you're meeting great people along the way, and you're doing good at the same time. So yeah, it just feels good.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I mean, as much as that kind of started like a little bit of a plug, the reality is that ties in pretty well to kind of what our topic is today, though, too. You talked about, you know, waking up excited and not worrying about the obstacles and stuff like that. It's kind of, you know, kind of on the other end of the spectrum from being in kind of a lull or kind of a lower point or a dark point of life, right? But you can use moments like this or talking to people that are in moments like this, you know, to kind of recognize, you know, hey, yeah, obstacles aren't in the way, they are the way. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And pushing through. I think, Ryan Holiday, right, is the author. I think the book is The Obstacle is the Way or something. He writes a lot about stoicism. Ego is the Enemy. He wrote that book. He's done the one I'm reading now. He did some biographical work about Stoics and stuff, which is really cool. Then the Daily Stoic Calendar he did or not Stoic Calendar, but it's like a journal. Every day it has a different quote and a meditation that you can focus on for the day. Ryan Holiday, so the Obstacle is the Way. That's one of his books, I think. But just good, you know, good stuff, and that's kind of my default go-to is Stoicism for most of the things that go on in life, right?
Sure.
But embracing the darkness, right? Embracing the lower parts, and I think that, again, I mean, it's a pretty good segue into it. Is when you see obstacles, instead of recognizing them as a stopping point or seeing it negatively, you know what I mean? You embracing the challenge, right? But I mean that's, you know, I don't think an obstacle necessarily can be considered darkness, right? When I first pitched you the idea, what came to your mind when I started talking about that?
You said embracing the darkness. I guess. Well, I mean, excited to do it, excited to get into it.
Right, sure.
You know, because it's not, because I think too often it's avoided, and I don't know if nowadays, you know, I don't know if nowadays it's avoided as much. I think people are working to be. I think the information is out there that lets people know that, you know, get this shit out there, speak on it, say what's on your mind, and you know, feel the emotions you're feeling. So I do believe it's been coming around in regards to the conversation of it, although whether or not that's in the mainstream, I don't know.
Right.
So I was excited to be able to, like every other conversation or topic, delve into it personally, to see how it's affected my life, and how I've made sense of it, if I have made sense of it, and you know, how it affects not only my reactions, but the people close to me, right? And even the people a little bit further from that. So, pumped. You know, I didn't have a frame of reference. You know, so I was excited to hear your side of it because I think when we can get together, I'm always learning something new about it. But how is for you? Was this a topic that you were like, I want to cross off the list, I've been waiting to talk about it, or was it something that just became more relevant now than before?
So definitely more of a relevancy thing, right? I mean, obviously it's been a couple months since we talked and or, you know, done a convo and stuff, and I think you know, past couple months, I mean, we're coming, you know, just coming out of winter now, and anybody familiar with northern New York winters knows that they're not, you know, not always super pleasant, and typically with it comes, most people experience some manner of, you know, seasonal affective disorder, so, you know, days are shorter, there's less light, and it affects your mood a little bit and stuff, and then some people are even a little more predisposed to depression overall, which I'm one of those people, and what happened is you know, it's been a while since we've chatted, and right now am in the deepest depression that I've been in several years, since well before we started this, since, I mean, probably, I mean, those familiar with the reason I started day one was, you know, from dealing with depression, from dealing with alcoholism and stuff, and I would say luckily, but I'd like to take a little more charge of it than that. I've avoided the alcohol relapse, you know what I mean? I actually haven't drank at all in a couple of months. But yeah, so I mean, the short answer is yes, it's very relevant to what's going on right now, but it's interesting to hear, so using the word embracing, right? So you were using words like you were excited about it and you wanted to jump into it, right? So when we hear embrace, you know, you just take it with open arms, and especially with the way that we talk about, you know, being proactive with what we're doing, you know, and just taking on, you know, embracing the obstacles, embracing the difficulties, accepting them for what they are, and knowing there's growth on the other side, you know. For me, I guess, you know, being in a darker season, embracing it is just accepting it. You know, maybe not being excited about it, but understanding like, okay, this is where I am, and this is what I'm going through. And sometimes that's all you need to understand. You just need to say, yes, this is what's happening, you know? So, and I think a couple weeks ago, finally, that's what I was able to do. Because a lot of times, and like when you start getting sad, or you start getting depressed, or you start getting anxious, you start getting angry and stuff, a lot of times people try to find a reason for it, you know? And I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and she was saying about depression is that it's fucked up because you can be happy and everything in your life that you can be happy about, but you feel depressed, you know? And I think that's a lot what's hard for people to understand about that, you know, I guess particular brand of darkness is that, I mean, like, you know, especially for me, I mean, I'm teaching full time at the gym, and that's all you know, that's what I do with my life. I get to positively affect people, and but what happens with depression is that, you know, you start getting tired, you lose full control of your mental faculties. You know what I mean? And I don't want to sound like you crazy or anything like that, but you know, things start piling up. And little tasks, you know, for me, like taking care of my house, taking care of the yard, getting things ready outside of, you know, what is my purposeful intent in life is being at the gym, right? So these tasks start piling up, and then you're a little bit tired, and then you start feeling fatigued, then you start feeling exhausted, and you're trying to figure out why. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? You know, I have nothing to be sad about, and then all of a sudden you collapse under the weight of a little bit of neglect, but a little bit of it is, I mean, just fucking, sometimes that's how it is. You know, and so for me, embracing it is once I finally get to the point of understanding, like, fuck, I'm in a depressed state. I feel bad. Right. And once I get there, once I accept it, then I can just I'll take a weekend and I'll just lay in bed. And which is what honestly I plan on doing this weekend, right? But you know, and I mean, I just got back from Colorado. We went to Colorado last week, and I just genuinely had this incredible time, and I felt great, and all the feelings of depression were gone, and I was able to be present, and I was able to be productive, and I was able to engage with people, and just take full advantage of everything that was going on. And Rachel and I went out there together, and we took the dog, and it was just this incredible experience, right? And so there's glimpses of being out of it, you know what I mean? And then getting back home, and then the weight of life kind of being back there. And so, you know, just pushing myself to say, you know what, this is something that I need to talk about. You know, so as much as we like doing these episodes to share with people and stuff, I shared with you a little bit before we started. It's as much for me to just say, this is what's happening right now.
Sure.
You know, instead of making a Facebook post in 2 months and saying, well, when I was depressed, these are the things that I did. You know, this is where I actively am now, and I'm in the process of embracing it, of feeling it, and of starting to let myself work through it.
Yeah, and you know, and I think it's a unique situation to be able to, you know, realize, you know, that this is what you're going through right now. Because I think in most cases, you know, the talks of depression are, you know, retroactive. Where we're talking about what had happened before, like all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, that's right. I guess I was depressed.
Yeah.
But I think we do a lot of work and self-work and try and stay attuned to what the body's going through, what the mind is going through, and so to be able to catch it in stride. I don't want to say it's cool. I mean, it's not. It's not cool. But you know, it's unique to be in that situation, and unique to have a platform to share that experience as well. Because you know, depression is not any like it's a big deal, and it's prevalent. And you're talking about we're just coming out of the winter, but that's a winter coupled with COVID regulations and big time changes financially and emotionally and spiritually, and there's just the uncertainty that comes with that. To have that aggravate underlying currents of negative self-talk or negative patterns that are in there. So I, you know, having gone through similar at times, whether lately or in the past, I'm sure there are plenty others that are going through what you're going through in their own way. And of course, you know, as always, feel free to chime in, whether now or later, and we can catch back up with you. But you know, you don't know. It's hard to pinpoint what it could be coming from. I am usually in the frame of mind that it comes from something. You know, you said a couple times that sometimes the shit just is what it is, and I think sometimes having that mentality helps to get through it, because you're like, hey, this shit is out of my control. Let it just kind of flow through me, and I'll get back on my feet when I get back on my feet. And I think that's a survival technique. But I also, you know, I like to understand, because I want to go through it less. And the better I can understand the past of it, the origin of it, better helps me to move into a future that, you know, it just happens less.
And see, that's so. That I think is a unique thing that separates depression from just sadness. You know what I mean? So, and you know, anytime you say you got something going on, everybody becomes a fucking doctor. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got this weird ringing in my ear. Well, were you exposed to any loud noises? Like, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? Shut the fuck up, man. You don't know what you're talking about, right? But I mean, I do the same exact thing, right? Somebody tells you what's going on, and then we think it's helpful for us to try to help them troubleshoot and help them figure it out, right? So from all the self-work and from all the analysis, I mean, I drive my fucking self crazy when I start feeling a downside. And it's usually when I mean, this right now has been pretty extreme as far as the way that I'm just having trouble getting a foothold and working out of it and stuff, right? But I mean, I think just talking about it and being honest with it and stuff is maybe that foothold that I need. But you sit there and you try to figure out, well, what triggered this depressive episode? What triggered it? What started it? Right? And because we're proactive people, and we want to understand, well, you need to understand why in order to remedy the problem, right? And that's exactly what you're saying, exactly what we talk about all the time. But the reality of the situation through all the self-work that I've done is sometimes the why is just because. That's as complex as it is. And so people say, you hear people talk about depression and stuff all the time, is they just laid in bed for 3 days. Sometimes that's what you need, because it has to work itself through your body. You know what I mean? It can be equated to a toxin, to a poison or something that just needs to work through a virus, right? That just has to go through your body, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes that's it. you know?
Yeah. Are you open to the not understanding, but are you open to the fact that sometimes we might not have the faculties to understand why?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes the reasoning might escape us and we can't find it and stuff, but if logically, if we can't come to a conclusion, kind of like you said, accepting that, okay, maybe I don't have control over this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this isn't something I can fix right now. Right? So just like the weather, right? Being in northern New York, one, we choose to live here, so that's as much control as we have. But if we're going to stay here, we don't have control over the weather.
Right.
So doing things like, okay, well, I don't have control over the weather. For me, over the winter, it was going into it. It was going and sitting outside and being in the cold and going into the water and doing breath work and stuff, right? So that was my way of saying, okay, I understand that I don't have control over this, but what can I do that's going to make this seem less daunting? So I went into it, right? One of the things that Wim Hof talks about is, you know, cold is your teacher. Go into the cold, go into it and let it teach you. Just be there, right? So, and he talks about darkness and about finding the inner light and everything, right? So the same thing is, I don't necessarily, people that actually have depression, the neurological impulses and the chemical balance and stuff in your brain, you don't always have control over that, right? So if you try to fight it, it creates frustration, and it manifests itself in anger, it manifests itself in substance abuse, it manifests itself in nefarious behaviors, right? That are detrimental to the people around you, you know? Whereas if you embrace it, if you go into it and you say, I'm going to experience this fully for everything that it is, because I can't control what it is, but I can control how I engage with it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, yes, I completely agree with you that sometimes that we lack the faculties to understand exactly where it's coming from. But I still think, I mean, you know, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm you know, I've been wrong for my whole life. I'm almost 35 years old. I've spent a lot of time being wrong. I hope that somebody's just listening to this and didn't see that asshole look you just made at the camera.
No, I know. I mean, I joke, and it's you know, you have your humility. You know what I mean? But even we were just talking about the graph. You know, you had graphed something out for me, and he made, you know, a couple different graphs as he understood something at that time. At this time, I understood the graph to be like this.
Right.
And this made sense to me. Now I understand the graph to be like that.
Right.
And, you know, we were kind of talking about, I'm interested in seeing what your next graph looks like in comparison to, because it'll constantly, all things are constantly progressing. Or they're, you know, regressing. So, you know, in that same sense, it could be right now. You know, we have to deal with it right now.
Yes, exactly.
And embracing that helps to let go of some of its power and some of its hold on you. And I think that's it really is key. And it's the first step to understand that by embracing it, rather than acting like it's not there, repressing it, smiling in people's faces, and you know, because it's going to end up coming out one way or another.
Exactly, 100%, man. And so the way you talk about it, as far as acknowledging it, right? So or accepting that it exists. One of the biggest things when you talk to people who've gone through AA, things like that, addiction programs, is the first thing you have to do is accept that it exists. You know, that's why the cliche, every AA meeting starts with, hi, my name's so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic, right? Because you have to own it, you have to own that it's there, then you can work through it. You know what I mean? But it's, you know, I told you I didn't want to do this before we started. I don't want this to be a big, you know, depression PSA fucking, but the reality is that people don't want to have that conversation. People don't want to say, yeah, I'm depressed right now. Because, like, I don't want somebody to try to fix it for me. I don't want somebody to try to logically reason with me about why I shouldn't be depressed. You've got a dream job, man. You know, you've got a great house. You know, you've got a great relationship. And all these things are true. All these things are absolutely true. I don't fucking need to hear from you because I already had that conversation with myself. I know I'm
Yeah.
having this logical conversation, but that's why it's hard though, you know. And what is nice and what's awesome is, you know, so I have, you know, friends like you, and I can say, hey, let's talk about this. And I know you're not going to try to fix it for me. It can just be a conversation, and you're not gonna feel bad for me. You know what I mean? You'll have empathy and stuff in this situation, which is exactly what you're doing, and I know I can always count on you to do. But you're not gonna feel bad, or you're not gonna treat me differently, or you're not gonna pull punches about it. You're gonna be direct and honest with me about what you understand about the situation, and I think this is what, I mean, for me, for sure, what you need when you're depressed or when you're feeling shitty is you just need to talk normally with people.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need someone trying to cheer you up. You just need them to be there. And one of the things I enjoy most in this world is having conversations.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll do the things that I like doing and not treat me differently just because you know that I'm depressed right now.
Right.
You know?
Well, and because there's no worse feeling than when you already feel like shit and someone and you have negative feelings towards someone who is trying to be positive. In their understanding, and trying to do right and to have negative feelings toward that makes me feel like shit.
Yeah, exactly. Then you
Fuck,
start carrying
only
guilt. So now,
yeah.
now you feel bad, and now you feel guilty for feeling
Right.
bad, right? And then if you lash out at that person, then you feel shame that you lashed out at that. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden these start to compound.
Yeah.
You know?
And then they have hesitation,
Yeah.
you know, in
yeah.
approaching you anytime that you might be going through it, or even just in general.
Exactly.
And
People take ownership of the way you feel,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, especially if you express it to a significant other, to a
Yeah,
close,
one,
you
yep.
know, hey, look, I feel bad about the way life's going. Then your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, starts feeling, well, what did I do to cause that?
Exactly.
What can I do to fix it? Like, you can't take ownership of how I feel.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And so that's hard too. And to be a good partner to somebody that's going through that is knowing enough to not take ownership of that and not feel the guilt of that, you know. But it's hard, and it becomes a very complex dynamic because you want to empathize and you want to help them, and it's hard to not feel like it's your fault because you're the most exposed person to them always, you know.
Right.
But so it's difficult to be on either side of it and maintain a good relationship through it, you know.
Yeah, you know, because we really respond from our own personal experience of it.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's easy to do and it's natural to do, but even with, you know, especially with something like depression, which they say can be a predisposition.
Right.
We can be exposed to, you know, the chemical imbalance that, you know, creates the lack of whatever, and it could be passed on.
Very
or it could be-
scientifically put. Very well done.
Well, I know the words, but if I use them, they'd be like, "Yo, he's capping." But so it's hard to respond in a way that people might need, and that might be your only way to do it.
Yeah.
So it is difficult, but the talking and saying it out loud is, I can't tell you how many times, and it doesn't have to be in a depressive state or anything specific, but the amount that I've learned, that I've thought I've known and got into an open conversation and learned either from the other person or that comes out of my own mouth.
Yeah.
And making different connections just by saying it out loud, because it resonates differently than just say writing it or just thinking it. You know, we're completing thoughts.
Yeah.
And we're doing it in a way that resonates with sound, and sometimes you might think some shit or you might write it, but then when you say it and you hear it and you feel it, you get those you know, the goosebumps, and like that's where that gives you a new starting point.
Big time.
And definitely something to go on. So the open conversations about the stuff, so important.
And I mean, even biologically speaking, I mean, it's not just a feeling, you know, it's the parts of your brain that process written thought, that process writing, language, right?
Yeah.
That process thought, that process speech patterns, and, you know, hearing language, or,
Yeah.
or not, it's not oratory, that's speaking. But anyways, the stuff that comes in
Auditory?
here, or
Auditory?
auditory, yes, thank you, sir. Yeah, you did know the words. You're right. No, I get to look like an asshole for busting your balls. But
Oh, shit.
so there are different parts of your brain that process all these things, and processing language, as I found out a little while ago, is a very complex thing, right? So you start activating these different parts of your brain, and now your synapses can start free associating a little bit. You're actually forming new neurological connections. So
Right.
there's truth to it that in speaking you can actually figure out brand new ideas, as you're saying them.
That's what. It's funny you said that. My girl always, her new line is synapses that fire together, wire together. And it's true,
I
you know,
like
and it really is true. And whether that happens naturally or through our own intention, the ability to make small changes, make changes one step at a time as needed is important, because oftentimes when people go through shit the first time, like you've been in this state before, right? Like you said, this is how day one came about.
Yeah.
And you've put in the work to where you have seen the light. You've, with your eyes closed, took that first step and then found something underneath your foot.
Yeah.
And then that allowed you to more confidently take that second step. I think a lot of people I assume that a lot of people still are afraid to take that first step.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not just because when we talk about the dark side of humanity or of the mind or of the person, it doesn't have to just be depression.
Yeah. Sure.
It could be different types of traumas that happen as a kid that we keep with us in our subconscious. That the mind does naturally to protect us.
Yeah.
That we are afraid to look at. We're afraid to open the door on. We're afraid to say it out loud, and even acknowledge.
Yeah.
And like you said before, I think before you kind of came face to face with your circumstance, you fought it off with things like alcohol.
Big time.
I mean, drugs, alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. Any overindulgence of any one thing to kind of stave off feeling. I mean, essentially addiction, and that could be any number of things, but it's to stave off that feeling of whether it is the fear in general, or shame, or guilt, or all of this shit piles up and just sits on our subconscious.
Yep.
So you're 100% right. The first step is allowing yourself to feel.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to feel, because I think that helps to, at least for me, allowing myself to feel, and it now gives me space, because now I'm like, okay, I feel it, and I'm still here.
That's it.
I'm still here.
That's it.
And so it allows me a little bit more space. Like, first, it seems like the world is like right up in your shit, and then after you start to allow it a little bit, I get more space, and then I can help, or I can start to like be aware of those reoccurring feelings.
Yeah.
Like maybe they come up at a specific time, or they are specific thoughts. And for me to try and identify that and kind of trace it back as far as I can, as far as my intellect allows for.
Yeah.
But that's just the stuff that I've learned. Trying to move through.
Absolutely, but like you were talking about, is that each time you go through it, you essentially take one more step, and like you said, you trace it back as far as your intellect allows, right? Mm-hmm. But every time you do it, every time you go through it, you can get a little bit farther into it, And I mean, darkness is scary.
Yeah.
Our friend Derek Shoemaker there, who does the paranormal investigations and stuff.
Derek, what up, man?
That's some pretty trippy shit. If you guys think of it, paranormal investigations in Watertown, it's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
They post all their videos and stuff on YouTube and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a reason that people seek that shit. They go into a dark building and they don't know what's in there. And I mean, they're literally hunting for ghosts, and they're hunting for demons and scary shit. But I mean, it's a perfect metaphor for what we can do internally.
Yeah.
You shut off the lights and you're in this. I mean, how big is darkness? You know, it doesn't matter if you're in a phone booth and it's completely dark, or if you're in a stadium and it's completely dark.
Right.
They feel the same size.
Yeah, 100%
and you don't know how long you're gonna be there. You don't know if you're gonna get lost. You don't know what scary shit you're gonna find in there.
Right.
And it's just you and whatever is in the darkness.
Yeah.
And if you've never been there before, you don't know what's there. You know, and you don't know what you're gonna find, and it's fucking terrifying to sit there with yourself and have to find all the things about yourself.
Sure.
It's terrifying.
Sure, because essentially, and not to over exaggerate it, but that darkness is the closest thing to death that we know, and I think maybe that's the association, because it's who we are versus who we're meant to be. It's like who we think we are versus who we are holistically or fully. Sure. And so some of these things, some of these darker aspects, which is fucking human, are kind of like small deaths. Maybe if I let it out, if I embrace it, maybe that might be the death of my character, or the death of who I think I am supposed to be in my ego.
The ego, right?
Death the ego.
Sure. Wow, that's beautifully put. Yeah, the little deaths, right? But things because we build an identity, who we are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And for me, anybody that knew me in high school, in my early 20s and stuff, like I for sure was a very angry person, and that the anger was a manifestation of depression, of deeper sadness, you know what I mean?
Right.
Of underlying issues that I hadn't fully understood, that I hadn't fully worked through, you know what I mean? I would like to think much better now at curbing my temper and thinking through things, but I mean, the anger is the same thing as sadness, it's ephemeral, it's not gonna last forever.
Right.
It's how you react to it that matters, right? So, but even being depressed, man, now when I'm depressed, I'm still able to do things. So I'm able to react to it differently. But when you start self-assessing, when I had to say, okay, yes, I have a tendency to be aggressive and violent and angry, right? And when I said that, in order for me to change, I had to let that part of me die, right? And you, at that point in your life, that's how everybody knows you. A little bit, that's how people expect. And no matter how much we say, it doesn't matter what people think of us, we build ourselves to be what people expect us to be sometimes. Sure. So when you want to make a change, you have to allow that part of yourself to die. And it's scary because when something dies, it's permanent, right? I mean, depending on your understanding of reincarnation and stuff like that, but even if you let your anger die and it's reincarnated, it can be reincarnated as something better in you.
Sure.
Right? So, but it's still permanent, because once it's dead, it's dead. And even if it comes back, it's not going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
So I like that notion of the little deaths, of exploring the darkness being the closest thing to death that we can get while we're still here, right?
Yeah, and you made a great point about changing and working to change, and change is not just predicated on who we are and what we do and how we verbalize, but it is also based on the people around us, especially the ones that we love and care about, and feel the same way about us, because if they're not changing, and we talked about this probably a few times, but if they're not changing in the same manner, even just what you are working towards, if they are unable to associate the new and the goals and the work you put in with who you are now and who are you becoming, and they still speak to you like however long they've known you, or however long you might have had that hang up, it's difficult to let go, because you can't fully evolve out of that and get rid of that,
right?
Whether it's whether it dies, or whether it's dormant, or whether it's now better controlled. I don't know, I don't know if it dies,
right?
I don't know fully, or what it is, but I do know that it's hard to change if the people if the people around you are not changing and growing right along with you,
or if they don't allow you to.
Same thing, whether intentionally or not.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So, you know, it's for me, it's a process. It's all a process.
Always.
And applying that understanding to whatever circumstance, whatever obstacle, helps me to either avoid, number one, or bounce back quicker.
Yeah.
Or to just not be so hard on myself, you know, to forgive myself, to be like, I'm going through it again. Whether I can go back and identify and associate what triggers me or where the emotions are coming from, because ultimately it's love and forgiveness. You're either, you know, forgiving yourself for whatever your brain was trying to protect you from.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
instead of having that still be a deterrent, like, fuck, you know, this is just the way I am, I guess. But really going back and being like, I forgive how you came to be because maybe you needed to do this because of this reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or even if somebody is causing and inflicting pain or harm on you, you know, to try and understand, like, I forgive that this is the only way you can express.
Yeah.
This is the only way you feel powerful or control the situation. So forgiveness has a lot to do for me with letting shit go, which essentially is either whether it's just a fucking mind trick, but it helps me essentially to let things go and let things pass, so where it's not taking me out of where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, I like that that notion of forgiving your former self, right?
Yeah.
Forgiving your past action. That's terribly hard.
Oh, for
because it feels like it's a cop out.
Right.
I forgive myself for this. Well, you're not taking ownership of it. Well, yeah, if you change your behaviors and if you genuinely are trying to become a more virtuous and better person and act in the growth that you've experienced, you know what I mean, right? Because when it comes back down to control, right, so the notion of what can we control and what can't we control, we can't control what we did anymore,
Right.
which is why as we grow and as we learn, it's so important for us to make good decisions and take the time to understand and feel the emotions. Again, specific anger is an easy one because when you react in anger, that's it, right? And you can't undo it.
Yeah.
So if you allow the anger to go through you, so if you embrace it, say, I'm feeling very angry right now. I need to not do anything. I need to not say anything. And I've gotten to the point, especially with Rachel, I'll say, I'm feeling very angry right now. And I want to breathe because I don't want to react in this state of mind, right?
Yeah.
But having changed from who I used to be, the person that is very prone to react in anger, right? And trying to become a person who doesn't react in anger, right? Now is the point where I have to forgive myself for what I did because the control isn't there. I can't go back and fix what I did.
Right.
I beat up my brothers when I was kids. I said mean things to my mom. You know what I mean? I was an asshole to kids in school.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Through all these different manifestations of being angry and frustrated with life.
Right.
I can't control that now, so I have to let that go, or it's going to drive me crazy. What I can control is what I do now and how I progress, right?
And it's so true. And that's and I think you were able to distinguish what it is to embrace compared to on one end of the spectrum, it's repression.
Sure.
Where possibly the repression of whatever trauma or whatever it is that might be triggering us can cause stuff like anger and rage, and you name it, and that repression almost is what we take out on ourselves. When we repress it, it's like we take it out on ourselves constantly. Where's our heart down? Where's our fucking mind down?
But it continues to manifest into others as well. Right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So not only does it extend the longevity of it, but exacerbates it.
Yeah.
And now embracing is not indulging in, because now when we indulge in, if you indulge in these things, there's a possibility you take it out on others.
Right.
And I think that's important to separate and distinguish because that's never it's never the way.
Right. It
it's never
becomes
the
an
way.
excuse for poor decisions.
Absolutely.
Right? Indulging in it. Yeah.
I think looking at the shadow self and feeling that pain or feeling that guilt or shame or, plug whatever you need to in, I think that's a good sign. I think it's healthy, and it shows that we're sentient beings, that we are capable of love and compassion, because if we look at that darker side of ourselves and we don't feel anything, that means if we indulge in that, you're a sociopath. And you indulge in these things without having any sort of empathy and compassion. That puts you in a different category altogether. So I would like to imagine that going through bouts of depression or what have you is just another sign that, like, right, I'm human. And I feel shit, and that's okay.
Yeah, dude, I love that. So going through it, embracing it, right? Embracing it and going through it. When you come out the other side, you have to come out more empathetic. You have to come out more understanding, right? If you truly experience growth, if you embrace it for what it was, and you approached it with the mindset of growth, you have to come out the other side being a more empathetic and caring human being, right? One of the notes I wrote down was the difference between embracing and wallowing, right? Wallowing in it, right? I really like the way that you put it, though, because there's a difference between embracing it and indulging it as well. And I think indulging and wallowing in it, it's a little bit different, right? So I think people that wallow in it are, I think people that tend to start using it for...
it's like self-pity?
Yeah, self-pity, exactly, for attention, right? And I hate saying stuff like that, somebody's just acting like this for attention, but the reality is that people do that, and I think those are people that are wallowing in it, or, again, I like the way that you put it, indulging it. They're accepting that it's there, and they're starting to use it for their advantage, but to just continue to feed it because they're not acknowledging that's what it is, really.
100% right. I think the self-pity thing, first and foremost, it separates. It says, oh, this is just how it is. I can't do anything about it. So, it takes away the responsibility for self-change.
Right.
And I think, and I've seen in person, on social media, and for all I know, I could have done this before in the past, but being in that state and using that for attention, like saying, oh, this is so tough and life is hard, or I feel like, and now people come and they're like, oh, pat you on the back, or oh, send a bunch of fucking hearts, or whatever it may be, and then it doesn't necessarily change that base level of depression or woe or anxiety, but you're still getting that, your little synapses are firing because people are coming to you for attention.
Get
so
a little dope hit, man.
The dope hit, and so that's what they think it is now. So you're not getting out, you're not correcting that depressive state or the shit you need to go through. You're just getting little hits along the way, and you're just gonna try and ride that shit out. But I mean, whether it's the dopamine hit from others or from the fucking thumbs up or from alcohol, cocaine, sex, you name it, you're always going to need more. You're always going to need more of it.
Absolutely. And so one of the things I say, I've got a good friend of mine, he struggles with anxiety, and I know, known him for a long time, and he's talked to me about it and stuff, but he never talks about it publicly and stuff. And when you watch him publicly, it's really hard to discern when his behavior changes, when he's struggling with it, right? But you see people on social media talk all the time. This gives me anxiety, or I'm depressed, I'm feeling bad, right? And what I've come to the conclusion that for the most part, right? I mean, obviously some people genuinely do it because they're crying out for help.
Right.
And that's why it's hard, is because you want to, if somebody is being public about it, you want to help them, right? You don't want to say, well, you're just looking for attention. But what's difficult is that the people that struggle with these things don't talk about it because they don't want to. Whether it be they don't want to be perceived as being needy, or it's such an internal struggle. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to project onto other people. They don't want thoughts and prayers. You know what I mean? They want something that's going to genuinely fucking help them, right? And so the people that are struggling don't talk about it. And that's why it's so hard. And
you hear it all the time, people that end up going to the extreme.
Yeah.
And when they go and they talk to their friends and family, and
Yeah.
they're like,
You
I
seem
thought they
fine.
were happy.
Yeah.
You know, always smiling, always, what do they always say? They always say, oh man, they always brought up the mood of everybody else. So it is. It's sobering,
Yeah.
you know, to think that could be the case, and it is shitty because we talk about, you know, it's not just the distinction of being genuine and attention seeking, because there's a very wide gray area in between that. That it's hard to pinpoint. So you want to treat everybody the same, but the thing is, it's you know, it's difficult because if you approach a situation one way and you give back in the way you can, that's your time, that's your energy, and that's okay. You know what I mean? This is what we're here for, as far as building self up and each other up. But if you go back next week and it's the same shit, you know, this individual put themselves in the same situation, and I go back and I give my time and my energy, in which I have to go back and work for again to build back up. That cycle is, you know, I try to remove myself from those cycles quickly.
Absolutely.
All through life. And like I say, in saying all this stuff, like, I can't look back and say that maybe I wasn't one of those people.
Sure.
So
I mean, we've all used attention-seeking behavior before, for sure. And like you said, though, if it's a continued pattern, eventually people get sick of your shit.
Sure.
And eventually people start disconnecting. But that's, I mean, when I was in high school, I did a lot of stuff like that. You know, a lot of attention-seeking behavior and stuff. And then once I realized that people were eventually getting sick of what I was doing, and I realized I couldn't get my fix there anymore.
Right.
What luckily, and I mean, there's a certain amount of luck to it. I think we stumble upon, you know, fascinating discoveries about self and pass through growth, sometimes by accident, right? But I was able to figure out that, okay, well, this is a superficial level of feedback. This is attention seeking. And if I want genuine, real connection, I have to change how I'm approaching it, right? And so was able to kind of start, you know, pass the self-growth back then. Obviously, it doesn't go away all in one shot, you know, but through time, I continue to get better at it. But so they always say, check on your happy friends, right? So how now, we just said that people that are struggling don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's important to have actionable steps, right? Philosophy is the art of learning how to live. So if we just walk away without anything to do, then we've accomplished nothing, right? So So how do we know who to check on, and how do we know how to approach these people to help them, right?
So, you know, and that's tough, because all of it's going to be based individually. But I think it's a large part of why we do what we do. And we bring the conversation to the best of our ability to the forefront. And we talk about shit that, you're right, makes us vulnerable, that maybe we wouldn't have shared in the past for the same, you know, for the same reasons, you know, due to societal norms or societal pressures, you know, to keep an image up and do what we think, you know, people expect of us, which I think is normal again. But I think bringing the conversation to the forefront, it's still, my hopes is that normalizing it in this way will allow the people that help people that you only see them with a smile on their face to feel comfortable with saying something. Because you're right, we can't go to them and be like, yo, you seem extra happy, you know, today or the last week. What's wrong? What's really wrong, bro? Yeah,
hey, you seem like you're on top of your life. What's wrong?
What's the problem? You want to talk about it? But you know, but it's you know, kind of coaxing, and by putting ourselves out there, coaxing others to do the same when necessary. Because that's, as far as where I stand now, that's how I see it.
Yeah, so I think the whole notion of people always put the responsibility on the person who's experiencing difficulties, right? If you need help, say something. And it comes from a good place. They want to empower people to openly talk about what's going on. How many addicts do you know that have come to you and said, hey, I'm addicted and I need help? How much strength does that take a person to do? It's fucking hard. But what helps, instead of saying, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you, right? Because that, honestly, that's one of the worst things I've ever heard. Because there'll be times where I'm talking to someone and it finally gets to the point in the conversation where I say, like, I'm not doing great right now, and they'll say, well, if there's ever anything you need, I'm here. I'm like, if we got to this point in the conversation, like, I'm already coming to you. I'm here now. This is what I need.
Right.
And that almost, and maybe it's personal, you know, maybe that's just how I feel about it, but it almost makes me want to shut down and say, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore. You
Right.
killed it, right? But what does help, and I talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the conversation, is just this.
Right.
The fact that you won't treat me any differently. And I know that, you know, if you're ever feeling down, we can have a conversation about anything you want. Like, if somebody messages me at 2:00 in the morning and I'm up, I will have a conversation with them.
Sure.
And I don't need to ask why. I don't need to know why. If it's one of my friends who this is atypical behavior, I'll understand a little bit what's going on.
Right.
Which is nice, and then I'll know, okay, maybe just talk to them a little bit more here and there. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great point and a great addition, you know, because I'm like, you know, we do this because we want people to be more open and be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
But also, you're 100% right. We also want to become the people who are better listeners, who judge less, who don't fucking, you know, who keep shit to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, personal matters.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. So to not only be more, to communicate better verbally, but also,
Auditorily.
yeah, I was good. I left the space so you could come back.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
But yeah, and I mean, honestly, man, that it's an underrated value. And I mean, I would absolutely love to be the person that, you know, somebody reached out and just bullshitted with them. Just, you know, just sit. We don't have to talk about anything, but if you know, it's nice to just be treated normally when you're feeling shitty.
Right.
Because no matter how nice and how uplifting people are and stuff, sometimes you're not ready for it. Sometimes it's not the right thing, you know. And we've actually talked about this before. Interestingly enough, it was in the You're Not Special episode, which is, the way I have my notes laid out, is the next episode that's side by side with the notes around here. But I talked about a buddy of mine. I was feeling really, really depressed one time, and he'd been trying to call me, and I was ignoring him. And then finally one morning I woke up and realized that the reason I was ignoring him is because I didn't want to be cheered up.
Right.
And I could tell him I'm feeling depressed as ever, and he would never address it with me. We would just talk, and he would, being the asshole that he is, would make me laugh and make me think less about it and stuff. And through, you know, it's not avoidant, because I think it's important to directly talk about these things, but sometimes it's what's needed the most is just to not talk about it and to just be a normal human being, you know?
Yeah.
Who's chiming in?
Al, what up, bro? Always appreciate it. He was saying that Robin Williams is a perfect example of what we were talking about before. People you would never imagine. I mean, the dude is a comedian. His whole career spent making people laugh. Yeah. But to still, you know, go through it when he's alone, you know, or when people are alone, man, it's probably happens so much more than we're aware of.
Yeah.
But a great point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. And it's, you know, everybody always says it's the people you least expect, but, you know, a lot of times in hindsight, you know, you look at Robin Williams and you can see in some of his interviews, you can see it in his eyes, you can hear it in his voice and stuff. And I mean, maybe more so if you've been through it before, but you can recognize the heaviness of it.
And even at the, you know, basic level, a lot of that humor can come from pain.
Yeah,
you know, humor comes from pain.
Yeah.
A lot of art comes from pain. You know, and a lot of I would like to even say a lot of our passions might even stem from. You know, stem from the same. So, but yeah, no, I like that. You know, wrapping up, I like the thought that it's not only about feeling more comfortable and putting yourself out there a little bit more when you need the help. In whatever form is best received, but also being the individual and being the type that people can mention to you, you know, just being better listeners as well, communicators as a whole. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's for sure something I'm always trying to work on, and some days I'm better at it than others, but, you know, we talked about before, we're problem solvers, man. and you and I have had this discussion about how we deal with, you know, our romantic relationships. We want to fix it. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you know? But it's not always the right answer. It's just, you know, trying to listen and understand. And when you know, the more you go through in life and the more you explore the darkness in yourself and the more you know, focus on self-growth and the more you learn internally, when you tell somebody, I understand what you're going through, that starts to carry more weight.
Sure.
You know, and you can just listen, you say, you know, I understand, or being honest with somebody and say, I do not understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
But I would like to, or I don't understand what you're going through, but I believe that what you're going through is hard.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
100% right, man. So, what, is it all fixed? Are you?
Yeah, I'm better now, man. Problem solved. Right? Good to go. So thanks for tuning into our live therapy session. Dr. Quince in the house.
But it was, I don't know if it's because it's been so long since we had the chance to come together and chat, or if it's really, you know, have an opportunity to just get down to real shit.
Yeah,
but this has been one of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, experience-wise. So
it's cathartic even. I looked the word up because I knew it was going to be a little bit self-serving today because there was, you know, some stuff I wanted, you know, for sure wanted to talk about, you know,
right.
And maybe, you know, self-serving a little bit, but that's the conversation. You know, the whole idea behind this was to turn the camera on while we were talking.
Yeah.
You know, and so I appreciate you being up for it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was awesome, man. It's nice to dig deep sometimes, man, and you know, it's nice to have people that, you know, when you want to talk about shit like exploring the darkness, when you want to talk about heavy topics, you know, there's nothing off the table.
Right.
You know, and
absolutely
exploring some vulnerability and you know, difficulties in life. So it's powerful, man.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate, you know, not you coming to me, but, you know, trusting me.
Yeah.
You know, I can that I'll respond in a way that is beneficial to you.
Sure.
In all real things shared, it's always learning for me.
Yeah.
You know, even
absolutely.
if you know, you or anyone else is going through something, maybe I've gone through it before.
Yeah.
Or maybe, you know, it's always a potential.
Yeah.
You know, we are all built of the same shit. You know what I mean? The mind works very similar, separated by experience, and so for me, it's all about always an opportunity to learn as well as to help.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
for sure.
And like I said, and the more you learn and the more you engage in conversation, the more that I understand what you're feeling carries weight. You
Absolutely.
know? And I think that's an important human aspect. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome,
And of course, as always, we thank you guys for tuning in, whether it's live or if you're getting caught up, you know, later on when you guys have some free time. As always, you know, feedback is great, you know, to continue the conversation throughout the days and the coming weeks. You know, I look forward to.
Always.
And a share would be appreciated just to get the word out. Also, if I don't think we've done this before, but we also enjoy having people on and chatting with them. So, you know, if you're out there chasing your passions and, you know, about self-growth and all the things, the ups and downs that come with that, we'd love to hear. We'd love to, you know, possibly even have you on. So
absolutely. It'd be awesome. Man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, look forward to continuing the conversation very soon.
For sure. Peace, guys.